11 and a wake up and yet another potential. I say potential because it's not for sure yet, but route change. Thinking see a friend in PA. Also, I like Pennsylvania a lot more than I like New York City. The one cool part about NYC is there's a way that I go like a stone's throw away from the Statue of Liberty, which all told, given I'm plotting to go as far west as Minnesota, man, that'd be kind of cool. But at the same time, somebody I do a podcast with is in not far off the route. He would like come see me along the way, sort of thing. So I'm kind of like, So that would be, instead of go straight up into North Jersey and then have to hug the Hudson for a while. I was looking at that last night, and unless I would take a ferry, there really are only a couple spots that you can actually get across that and not a vehicle. Now there is the 9 that has a foot and bike path, and then the next one that I could see that was okay enough is as far north as Sleepy Hollow. But at that point, you're well north of the city. And in the grand scheme of things, that's not necessarily the bad thing. You never really do enter New York City. I mean, you can stay on the west side of the Hudson the whole time. You know, go up through Jersey City and whatnot. And pass through Staten Island. Which, okay. That's okay. A lot of urban riding, which means it's a long day, man. You don't really stop much, and your head's going to be on a swivel. And that's where I'm like, maybe go another way, because the other way, you don't even have to go through, like, Philly or anything like that. You'll go around it. I'll have to go up to Trenton, which is a little bit of herbs, but not nearly as bad as, a major, metropolitan like New York City and the surrounding subparts of all of that, you know what I mean? Because there will be plenty of other cities along the way. I mean, there's still Cleveland to think about. There's still Chicago to think about. At this point, it's looking like I'm going to actually go into the Lower Peninsula to cover a lot of the same distance. So there's Detroit. There'll possibly be Lansing. And then there's my own Grand Rapids, which that'll be fun to be home, even if very briefly. And then anything north of Chicago really isn't all that big. A lot of those are pretty equivalent to some of the smaller cities in Michigan that I'm used to. So, nothing to really worry about there. You just keep moving. And then there's the wildlands, right? Where like the risk of wildlife is there, but it's minimal. Your only real threat, which is greater on a bike versus when I'm on foot. When I'm on foot, I can very easily get out of the way. But on a bike, I have been hit before. It was a long time ago, and it was trying to avoid another guy, and I mistimed somebody behind me. And thankfully, I didn't get killed. Thankfully, I did not get killed in my senior year. But you always keep that in the back of your mind that, on a bike, it's a lot more dangerous when you're on the actual open road. Now, granted, there are a lot of trails that I can avoid being on the open road, and that's why I'm trying to favor trails more than anything, is just for my own safety's sake. I can be as defensive as I like as far as how I, am on the road, but you can never factor, a blind spot or somebody that's drunk, or at this point in life, I hate to say it, but, some kids who just want to pick somebody off, because that's happened. That has happened, Not that, every single person out there is out to kill you. I'm not saying that, but these are all things you do have to keep in the back of your mind as a possibility, but you can't live your life being completely and utterly terrified. That then you never get anywhere. You have to accept risks for what they are. It's part of risk assessment, and execute your op from there. So, if I take the Pennsylvania route I've already scouted after Allentown, a whole network of trails and whatnot that will go straight through all the way to the north part of Pennsylvania, where it touches upstate New York, and then just kind of go through upstate through the middle straight up to Rochester. It's not too far off the line kind of thing, as a figure of speech. Lanes on a map. There's enough smaller roads that I've seen and scouted already, like last night on Google, that, you know, assuming they're not too terribly busy, fair enough amount of small towns, easy enough, you know, probably get a little bit of hills here and there, but at any point, it's viable. I'd prefer trails just because it's a lot easier to stop and rest on those versus, you know, open road. You're kind of dependent on a number of factors, you know, where you are, if, you know, there's no trespassing or stuff like that, or if there, you know, if there are parks or not, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. Even if that means just stopping for 10 minutes, people always ask where you sleep at night, and I never like to get into that, just because some days you really do just have to make do, man. Some days you're under a bridge, others you just find two trees, but where those two trees are, you really need to consider a lot. You know what I mean? Because you never want to be woken up with a gun in your face, or, you know, with the potential of leaving there in handcuffs. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants your trip cut short by the long arm of the law. So, you know, you take that into mind, or into consideration. You always clean up after yourself too, just because it's so many places I go where it's, well, you seem fine, but others behind you have literally spread feces all over the walls in a bathroom. True story. So the town is skeptical of people like you just because that has happened. Fair enough. Fair enough. Again, true story. In any case, so very soon. It's pretty much all I'm thinking about.